Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure. Today's adventure has started off with all kinds of technology issues.
Yes, Sue is incredibly loud on my end.
It's funny because we have these settings, everything's set up, and you'd think that from week to week everything would work normally, but obviously
It
that's
recalibrates.
that's not the case. I don't know about recalibration because sometimes it's just tough. But anyhow, we'll make do. Are we going to be able to handle this or no?
We're going to do our very best and move forward.
Okay. And would you introduce our topic then today, Tina?
You know, it's kind of an interesting concept. I thought about this term. I don't know if it exists. I haven't even looked it up, but it's self-estrangement. And it came out, I'm going back and I'm rereading my memoir. And so it's about really how you leave yourself to fit into life, into a marriage, into society's norms. And so I wanted to kind of explore with you in your past, because I know mine very well, and I'll share with mine too. And I want listeners to even think about it. Like, are you living your authentic life right now? Or have you contorted yourself to make everything fit to follow the prescribed rules? So have I lost you yet?
No, that's an interesting question. And then the other part is, is it all about oneself or is it about living in a society? So there's this balance between being true to yourself and on one end, and on the other end, living for everyone else's expectations. There's something in between.
Correct.
Where it's you have to compromise to live in society, but you don't have to compromise yourself. Is that what we're talking about?
That's really it. And I'm really struggling with the whole compromise thing, because that's where I started reflecting and realized that by compromising, I ended up living a life that really had nothing to do with me. And this side of retirement has now proven to me that I'm just like going back 3 decades and now like beginning again where I left off. And so I'm now living in integrity with all my core values that I somehow lost along the way. And that's kind of what I wanted to explore with you too. It's like, do you see ways in which you completely transformed yourself into something that really wasn't your authentic self? And on this side of retirement, are you now living more authentically than ever? Or perhaps are you still living within these transformations that may not be your authentic self?
Well, let's explore that. It's interesting to me that you use the term on this side of retirement. So are you embracing that you are retired? Or are we talking about just leaving the school profession? Or are we talking about, you're no longer working? Maybe because right now you are in this place where you are not. See, you are working though. So
I'm
even if you
working
don't
without
get paid,
receiving money.
right?
I'm trying to figure this out. And I actually picked up my blog and started writing this morning, because I thought, this is kind of an important piece, which is I have intermittently made wages. I have intermittently in the past 4 years made some income. Not what I did as a teacher, but enough to get me through by living well on my savings with this income.
Mm-hmm.
And this last year, for the car, waiting for that to be done, there was absolutely no income coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I had to turn this year into a waiting thing, because it was going to be done in February. Right. And it was going to be done July before that. So I've had to keep recalibrating my expectation of when we would move forward with this business. Right. So I finally got to this point. It's the growth of acceptance for what is, and to just not fight it, because it's just a waste of energy. So I thought, well, what I've got is time, right? I'm rich in time.
Mhm.
What am I going to do with my time? And my time has, led me to very many things that I've learned skills with this year. So I call it my self investment year, because it's where I've really invested in the things that I've always wanted to accomplish and I've needed the time for. So I would like to call this self investment time. Mm. So back to your question.
Well, the question really comes back to then, you use this phrase on this side of retirement. And so I'm wondering, I don't hear you really retired. You are retired from teaching, but
Right.
you're not really retired. And so I'm
No.
wondering if maybe in this year of self-investment that it is kind of like a mini retirement in that you have the luxury of not having to go to a job that someone else
Correct.
is mandating for you, and yet you're working, you're active, like people who are retired are hopefully active in many ways,
Right.
learning, growing, deciding what their priorities are, what's next, how to approach it. Hopefully, we're all still doing those things, and so I'm wondering if that's what you're meaning by on this side of retirement, or is it in relation to teaching? That's my question.
Excellent question. And I think when I see it, I keep coming to this podcast every week with the retirement. I've just put on a new tread. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a new tread right now.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I use that word, it is the retreading.
Okay.
And then it's using the word for both of us, retirement, because you're retirement, and I am retiring, putting on a new tire. So I'm just at this, so I'm using it for that. But
Okay.
where we both can mutually have the common ground is we both have retired from teaching.
Right.
That is fact.
And we have
That is
new treads
fact.
going on. New
Right.
treads.
New treads.
Okay. So
Yes.
back to your question about living an authentic life and the
Yes.
balance of that. Um, do you have a something do you have a selection from your memoir that kind of made this the catalyst of this conversation, or?
Yeah. So I came across my chapter 29 called Self Sellout. And that's even almost like a tragedy when I hear that, but it's true. It's true. And I think you're going to understand some of these parts. So I'm just going to read a couple of things and then we'll take it from there. And then I'm just going to read my subcategories. But I put, nearly my whole life has been a sellout to myself, with one exception, my girls. I wanted to be a mom and gave 100% to being the best mom I could. So, this, in fact, is the truest thing. I spent 1 year when I was 29 really asking myself, am I going to have children because that's what I'm supposed to do? Or am I going to have children because that's what I want to do? And I gave myself 1 year and I really thought hard. And when I finished the year, it's like, no, this is what I want. If I were to die and I had not had the experience of having children, that would have been a sadness for me. I would have been a regret.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad that I took that time and I made that commitment. Now, other than that, I don't think I have lived anything much more authentically. Wanting them, being a mom to them, that was authentic. But I honestly have not lived a very authentic life. So I'm going to read one more thing. I put, the travesty is what I did to myself to live the life I thought I was supposed to have. In America, in the 80s, the expectation was that girls go to college, get a degree, and then get married. And I did that thing. And I'm not sure that that was ever the thing that I wanted to do, but I did it
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we were to do. So in this 4 years of time, I keep realizing I'm just going back to where I left off in college and left myself. I keep going back to doing the things that I'd always wanted to do. I just took a 30-year hiatus, minus the kids, but I took 30 years off. And it's so kind of frustrating and interesting that it's like it never changed within me. I just got 30 years off course. And I'm now stepping back to what I should have done in the first place. So these 4 years of self investment have also been like self actualization that I should have done 30 years prior. So just to give the recaps, I realized the first thing I did in my first self sellout was I went to the college my mom guilted me into going to. I was meant to go to San Diego in my mind so I could get a tan while getting an education. And I got in. I got in. But I knew that her displeasure would have been too much for me to handle. So I picked Riverside because it was close to home and that's what she could handle. The next thing I came across, and it's kind of creepy because I wrote about it, so clearly I was aware. The next thing is my mom pressured me into becoming a doctor. So I contorted it and said, okay, I'll be a psychiatrist because mental illness is fascinating. And then I get there. I hated math. I hated science. That's everything you need to be a doctor. But I love Spanish. So I nearly sold myself out on that because I started off doing what she wanted, switched my major, studied Spanish and German, was happy as a clam. Then studying abroad. That was a partial sellout. My ex-husband told me at that time if I were to go abroad for a year, it's over between us. My mother said, absolutely not, go nowhere, because that's, you shouldn't leave me, basically. So between the two of them, I only went for a summer to Mexico for 1 month because that was like, and then we talked about compromise. So that was a compromise too. I didn't do the year that I wanted to do. And so I kind of sold myself out and I didn't. Next. And this is just like the beginning of my life. Like we haven't even talked about the 30 in between years,
Right.
but here we are, my career. I wanted to do something using Spanish and I wanted to travel the world. And this is where I'm saying to you now, it took just this last 4 years where I went to Cuba. I finally got to do my 9 months, I realized. And in fact, I was there exactly as if I had gone and studied abroad.
Mm-hmm.
But so I went and did the very thing I should have done 30 years ago. But I sold myself out for these two people. And then I became a teacher, which I so distinctly, and we talked about it before, I sat in my algebra high school class looking at this teacher I couldn't stand. And I said, I will never, ever become a teacher. And here I became a teacher. Now, I have to do a little plug. High school was hell, not a fit. But that sixth grade program where we met was very beautiful for quite a while.
You mean the teaching part,
So the
not
teaching
not
part,
your own
when I,
personal high school years.
yeah, no, the teaching part of high
Mm-hmm.
school, teaching high school and junior high is horrible. So, but the sixth grade we did was good when it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, my wedding became my mother's, and she wouldn't even talk to me when there were things that I wanted to do that she didn't approve of. She stopped talking to me. My ex-husband, if this isn't a warning, stopped talking to me and would not come visit me because he didn't want to have anything to do with it because he was angry with my mother because they were having a feud. So I had no support. I had the wedding not of my dreams. I had my mother's wedding,
Yeah, there's a lot
right?
of red flags going on here, and a lot of it, Tina, is
So
about
many.
it's about your youth. It's about being a young person, about not having a full voice, and even necessarily knowing your voice. And I think being a young person, that's the time when you we people get pushed into things because of complying. These are your parents, they're footing the bill oftentimes. They're the ones who've
Not
got
in
it.
my case. Can I just interject this part? I paid for my own wedding. My husband didn't help. My
No, I was talking
parents didn't
college.
help.
I was talking college. Yeah,
Oh, college. That too. I paid for my own education as
very
well.
good. Well, see, and
So,
and that's well, see, and in general, when we're young people, we're 18 and we're making these decisions about going to school and stuff. We follow we follow what our parents say for the generally, not always,
right.
and we listen to their advice because we've trusted it to this point, or you reject it, you question it, or whatever. But they represent societal norms, and
Yes.
we're still unformed when we're that age. We're, the more and more you think about it, an 18-year-old, really, they're going to be the ones to decide everything like they know everything. Yes, they know a lot about themselves, but no, they don't know. And are they fully developed? No. Have they understood that it's theirs to choose and to take the responsibilities that go along with that choosing, and to have the strength and the ability, the clarity to see all those things? Yeah, I think we have to be gentle with ourselves as young people, and the decisions we made. The thing that's missing, I think, that we maybe need to improve upon in our culture is reflection. Time to reflect and
Mm.
think and develop those core ideas and the core values that are kind of universal. Do unto others, be respectful. Um, I think that we need to give young people a break, but we also need to teach ourselves to do that all throughout our lives. And it's strange that we come to this place where we're now I'm retired. We're old enough that you actually, and now being retired, I got time to reflect. And we
Mm.
have to learn. I mean, now you're trying to learn these skills as an older person, and what do you make with that? What do you do with that? And I mean, that's the next thing. I think we just need to get better at reflecting and being honest with ourselves and each other. I mean, yeah, because there's so many red flags there, Tina, and you can
I
look
know,
back at
isn't it
it.
frightening?
Yeah, but you can look back at it now and see them so clearly. But in the midst of it, you question all that. I mean, it's normal, I think, to find the ground underneath you falling out when people that you love are saying this and that, and they're sidetracking you. That's it's hard to see because you're not looking back. You're in it at that moment. So and you're a young person equipped. So we got to be gentle around that. The thing is, yeah, I hear you. There's a lot of quote wasted time or maybe regrets, but reality, that's just life too. Life is about um, learning and growing, and it's a shame that we just don't aren't more well equipped when we're younger.
So a couple things just popped into my mind, and one is if we could revamp our public education system and put in some structure in a day each day for self-reflection, for meeting goals, for we don't teach children to think about things like that. Maybe
R-
that's just too deep. Maybe kids aren't capable, but if we taught them skills to evaluate what's right for them to make an authentic choice, but maybe that's an impossibility when you're living under the influence of your parents. And I don't know. Anyway, I just wonder if that isn't something that should be
It
integrated.
wouldn't that be beautiful? However, as it is, just being able to teach nowadays, my word,
It's impossible.
yeah, and all the shutdown on DEI, you can't say certain words and talk about values and so forth. That just it doesn't fly anymore, and it's wrong because we've it's so hard. I mean, I understand the idea of you don't want an institution to brainwash you, but that's not what is going on. It is cultural,
Yes.
civic
Norms.
norms, and a lot of people, a lot of kids live in isolation where they don't get that too. I mean, more and more you're getting people who are kids who are stuck at home and they're not part of the civic cultural world. They're on their they're on their TikTok and all that stuff, and I don't know. We're getting off the topic here, but
We are. But I think that anyway, that was the first thing that popped in my mind. But now I want to go and the second thing that popped into my mind, and I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but it's something that's really worked for me to understand that compassion you're trying to have me go back and look at. So I watched this, and I recommend it to everybody. It was a documentary about elephants, and basically what I took from it was you're a baby elephant and you have a rope and you're tied to things as you're getting trained. And then elephants get big and they become this big adult. And that rope really is like a string, but they've been conditioned since they were little to think of that rope as being limiting and not realizing that as they got older, they were able to break free this whole time on that same rope. And I look at myself as that child where I was really, really trained by a very domineering mother. And so then it was so easy to keep me in that hold, that structure,
Mhm.
because I was
Right.
so conditioned and I didn't realize this whole time I could have said enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore. And I refused to follow that rule because I am an adult. But I was conditioned, not realizing that I was a baby elephant that grew up to a big elephant that could have broken the rope. So, that in mind, I want to go to have you think, as your young self, when we get this is where I'm struggling in this area in terms of compromise, because I'm not I'm confused about compromise, because compromise is the very thing that I did. So I thought I compromised everything really to make this relationship work. And at what point is it really a compromise, or is it a contortion to make yourself fit in? And my question, maybe I'll stop there because I want to then have you think, are there areas where you thought you were compromising, but in fact you were selling yourself out?
Well, in the context of your question, all of that, I think that is something that happens to everybody. It happens more often in detrimental ways to women. Um, yeah, people do. And why? Why? What's the motivation behind it? Is it the conditioning? Is it fear? Is it, as if you think about it, other people, when you compromise or well, you're saying compromise yourself. When you sell yourself out, some people do it for money or fame. That's not even entering our question because I don't think
No,
it's
right.
none of that is there. And so it's to the detriments of oneself.
Hmm.
To their, they're not really getting anything from it. And
But I think we are. And as you said that, and the more I've gone into therapy, we are getting something from it. It just may not be the monetary external things.
well,
It's
what I
not the
mean is the money, but yeah, okay. Here,
security,
you, of course, you get
safety,
something.
social acceptance. Those are the underlying things if it's not external.
Yes, things that we think are positive that may not be positive in the long run. I mean, security, sure. Security, you're choosing to be roped down, like you're saying, using your metaphor with the elephants. That is a security, but yeah. Um, acceptance by the by
Everyone, family,
society.
friends.
But if you can't accept yourself in that, there's no happiness in it. And so that's the hard part to measure especially as a young person. But then we keep practicing that through our lifetime. You don't know what you're going to want or need until you test it and figure it out. And so now, I mean, our privilege in this society is that we can step outside of that those choices that we made that encaged us, and start a new life, start a new tread. This is that's the thing is um, not every culture allows you to do that. So
So true.
yeah, so we're lucky in that respect. Where at
So
some point,
true.
I mean,
Yes.
the way you've described it's very interesting. I remember at one point in my life, I felt like I was treading water, not really going anywhere. I was saving myself. I was productive and uh, helpful, and there are big parts of who I am right there. I'm alive. I'm treading water though, and to do that year after year after year, decade after decade, you feel like your head
Soul
goes
killing.
underwater more and more, and to the point where you know that it's going to at some point take you
Take
under.
you under.
And
Yeah.
to be able to decide, I'm done treading water. Hey, to use the metaphor, there's a boat right there. All I have to do is get on it or ask for
Gosh.
help to be pulled on it, because at that point I probably don't have the strength. You know, it is a massive privilege to be able to figure that out, to have the strength and the courage to choose that, and to have
And
the
take
opportunity,
action.
yeah, and to have the opportunity to do it, because in many places, many parts of the world, many times within, human history, women didn't have a chance to do that. That was a saving grace. And so, and that's called life, you do the best you
And
can
also
do.
the luck of life,
Yep.
because as you keep saying that, I'm realizing just by the luck of the dice, Sue, we happen to be born here at this
And
time,
now,
at this
yeah.
stage.
Yep.
And I think about the other countries that right now, at this time, in this stage, let's pick Afghanistan, for example.
Or let's pick the
They,
United States for that matter.
yeah, well, that's true. But let's go to Afghanistan, because this is another thing where, they had this little window where they got to taste going to school as women, and now they've seen it disappear. So they tasted it and it disappeared. What I think is almost more tragic is that,
Hmm.
because they've had it and now they've lost it. And we haven't had to face that. That's where we really are fortunate. But it's truly luck. I mean, you and I didn't ask to get born here at this time.
Right. And in the situations we're in,
Uh huh.
because in our own country, we've got so much limitations being put upon people. It's yeah, you don't have to look too far. Your example was very clear and very loud. And it's interesting because, in fact, next week, I get to go see Malala at Mondavi. Yeah,
Oh,
so that's kind of
wow.
cool. So I'll get to hear her talk. But, you know, it's, I think, there's this
Malala.
balance of all of it is that this one is life. Life is a big struggle of the positive, the negative, and if without the negative, you wouldn't have the positive. All that
Right. You
thought,
wouldn't even know what
you know,
positive was.
right, and and
Hmm.
and growing up and being, the coming of age and being an adult. You're not an adult at 18. Start becoming an adult, and you keep working on that the rest of your life,
I think that's so true.
and then to be able to take the clues and the knowledge and the empowerment, the friendships and the people behind you that can help you choose the paths that are more authentically yourself. That's what we have to keep doing and keep learning. And if we don't have the time to slow down and be reflective
Correct.
and plan that, and to really be in tune with what are your core values, and know that working towards those core values often is at a cost that maybe for me, the cost has prevented me from uh, making that hard choice, and understanding that that's something that I'm responsible for, that it just doesn't happen to you. It's something when you finally figure out that here's my core values, here are tools and ways that I can do it. And if I choose to continue to stay in my old routines, my old learning style, then that is a choice I'm doing until I can find the courage and the strength or whatever to follow those core values. You'll stay on this path of regret, of feeling like you're selling yourself out or selling yourself.
Or let me interject. I think you perfectly described how most people, because we don't have that time, you were saying you were just treading water. And I think part of the treading water is you're just trying to do all of it all at once, and there's no time to even breathe. That's what treading water is. It's
Hmm.
like not really having the time to figure it out, to float on your back for a little bit. And I think that that is part of what our culture is spiraled into. There's less personal reflection time. There just isn't. And I think that is something that I've found on this side of retirement again. These last 4 years, I knew I could not have learned all the skills that I have learned had I been teaching, because when I am a teacher, there is nothing left of me. I come home and literally drool out the side of my mouth, try and recuperate, try and eat to go back in. It is so draining that I couldn't do one more thing.
Yeah.
And I think, in all fairness, I think everybody's got different levels of things, but I know that I gave 100%. 100%. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. So because I gave that 100, I didn't have 101% left to do anything else.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's the thing is you're also when you're in the midst of something like that, you are learning and learning and you're learning and you're
true.
excited about the learning because you're doing your job and you're doing it better and you're parenting and you're parenting better and
Simultaneous.
and
Yeah.
and and you're doing all these other things, but it's that time to stop and look at yourself and be able to put that same energy into learning for yourself so that you can be the best person you can be for all the other parts of your life. Yeah, it's tough. Personal reflection time is needed. It needs to be built in, and it needs to be taught and valued.
That's what I mean. That's what I was trying to say is, where can people learn this common thing of self-reflection? Because most people don't even think about it, don't even know. I mean, of course, intellectually, if I said, do you self-reflect, they would say, well, no, or yes. But to actually incorporate it into a lifestyle as a value, I don't think it can come without it being somewhere like public education where everybody's exposed to the concept of self-reflection.
Yeah. Cultural norms, they come through all different parts of our society. Certainly education, the educational system is one of those.
I would like to just conclude with, then, I would love for people to stop and think about what really sparked them before they got married and went down that path, and what to just kind of open up the mind to what used to be there, what were those dreams, and are they discovering, if they're our age and on this side of things, are they discovering how they're actually going back to those things now that there's time to do it? Please let us know if you've discovered something that you have now rediscovered that was always there.
Excellent. Thanks for listening. Now let's pack up this week's episode in the trunk.
Ride shotgun and be a part of our adventure by clicking on the plus sign to subscribe and follow our show. This will help our ratings and, more importantly, inspire us to keep creating fun and engaging content. We would love to hear from you in the comment sections or email us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. Use the fast track lane by sharing episodes with friends, family, and anyone who would like to join us on our road trip through Re-tirement.
Be sure to check the show notes for links and contact information. Retired is chauffeured by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Buckle up and tune in next week so that you won't miss your chance to join our retired road trip.